Alright, hello everyone. My name is Disc, and this is an Iron Docks 24 Tyrannical bursting Volcanic, and we're going big on first pull. So as a ramp, I get all my dots out, getting a couple of atonements out, and we're going straight into Boon. Blast, Nova, Nova, Blast. Definitely want to play defensive here, so I blast Radiance Blast for coverage. Drop Pain Sup on the outside of Boon and use that 8-second window just to refresh atonements. I'm sorry, to refresh dots. Barrier, because this is far from over. I had a 3-stack with no single dispel, so I opted for Mass Dispel early. I think it got at least 1 stack of bursting off the team too. But the only spell you don't really want to use there is Shadow Fiend, because we are going straight into boss. But arguably you could pop Shadow Fiend there too. It probably wouldn't have hurt anything. Actually probably would have helped. But that is not one I worked in. We have Shroud, but I'm faded also, just kind of soothing everybody as we walk by. As long as you're faded, it's really okay if you're casting. It operates a little bit differently than a Shroud. And first boss here is a little bit hectic just because of the way it's tackled. You do it with trash. And there's a couple really important things we gotta watch out for here. But as my opener, I'm getting all my dots out. We have Lust, making sure I'm targeting the boss. Schism, Boon, Blast, Nova, Blast, Nova, Blast, Nova. Our preferred rotation. Landing as many hits as possible. I atoned the tank very last before Boon. It allows you to not break from Boon. Keep tank heals. Uh-oh, stunned. Okay, so the only thing we really have to watch out for here with our timers and bigwigs is the Reckless Provocation. It's the Purge. And the Frontal. So that Frontal there, you can't really predict, well, not on a timer, the first one. It just, it happens when he comes out. And we have Schism available, so this is Shadow Fiend Schism. You really want to be quick with that Purge. You can anticipate it and like preset your finger on your keybind. And when it comes to that mauling, I don't track the timer on that either. I show it on my bars with a red dotted line. And I have some cooldowns here, but we're trying to just level out a little bit before we chain into some more trash. Went into a very defensive Rapture, just farming my absorbs using grid 2. And now that his buddy is just about dead. Okay, yeah, I didn't want to play around here, so I walled and paints up myself. Probably could have gotten away with just a wall, but we did okay. So I fade. I do not want to be on the aggro table. Drop a barrier just to give me 10 seconds to dot the group. And here's my first PI. It was a little bit weird just with the timers and popping PI right before boss. That was the first PI, but I think it was still maximized. So anyway, a couple of atonements. Boon, Blast, Nova, Nova, Blast. And I felt we were pretty stable, so I didn't even refresh atonements. And we were fine. Alright, and right there we had a death. I did watch this ahead of time, so I want to explain it a little bit. But we had overlapping mechanics where I couldn't do everything. We had a 4-stack of bursting go out. We had the Purge mechanic on the boss. And like a lot of damage to heal. So in a case like that, I did switch targets. I made the Purge slightly late, but our hunter had already gotten feared and was stuck in ground damage. So as, let's say, a suggestion for anyone who's playing a DPS or tank class here, if you can see that the group has a 4 stack of bursting and half health overall, with a purge mechanic going out, you should kind of assume that responsibility of the purge, assuming that I'm going to be healing. So it's kind of like a give and take, and that is a little bit more of an advanced, I guess, practice. But you have to be overall aware of the group and know what's happening, and like when to step in on small utility mechanics like that. Yeah, because I did everything. It was slightly late, and we had a death. So, yeah. And here we have our second Shadow Fiend, refreshing some atonements in the group. I trail in Schism behind the Shadow Fiend. I'm rolling as many single target spells as possible just to maintain the healing. Keeping everybody atoned while the bursting is going out. And boss down. So, yep, there's a quick wall, got a little bit low. I had 2 mechanics hit me too, so that's good. But back to the purge mechanic for a moment. I definitely think it's something everyone should get in the habit of pressing on that timer. I don't think it should fall to one person as their responsibility. You know, even if 2 to 3 party members use a global there, it's better to dodge that mechanic. And with a little bit of extra coverage from multiple purges, it really just helps the group overall. And it's a little bit more of an advanced ideology. But in a situation like that where bursting was going out, the group should have known I was switching my priorities and naturally stepped in anyway, if you ask me. But yep, you definitely want to purge that. It could have avoided that death. And I'm pretty sure all the deaths there were completely avoidable. So if anyone's keeping count, I think they were avoidable. Okay, so for this, I want to give an atonement before he runs out. I need a little bit of mana. I'm trying to let him get a head start so I don't get hit by the big AoE. But it's not a bad idea to use cooldowns here, at least a grip. So my tank is anticipating some from me. I'm trying to position myself in line. We have a little orange marker. Grip him over. I go into a Rapture defensively, and that was all we needed to live. So here's another thing talking about awareness. The Warlock should have been anticipating bursting and damage and was very far outside my range. So I kind of just think as a DPS character, you always need to eyeball your healer and consciously stay in range. And I don't think you really need a marker for that, but you can use party nameplates. I think in a raid, party nameplates aren't the best call, but in a 5-man, I would say it's necessary for any role. Turn on party nameplates. Grip just to help the tank out, making sure I'm in line with our star. I don't know why they're called that. And I think with those stars, your tank should be able to handle that as part of his job, but they can only attack 15 mobs at a time, so we have to kind of strategically plan this. And this is the only way we know how to time this key, but we have a hunter pull the full gauntlet, and we use a star to hit 15 mobs here. And he did that with his aspect of the beast, or whatever it's called, where he mind controls his pet, and he just goes and aggroes everything. And again, right here, you should be stacked with your buddy for a mass dispel, but we're completely scattered. Okay, so at this point, definitely all cooldowns are charged. But we are going to take these guys into boss, so this isn't really a dump. We are going to dump PI, it looks like. Yeah, not a bad idea. to kill these guys and make our way to boss is going to take the better part of 2 minutes. So there's no reason to hold a 2-minute cooldown. So PI is used. Not as effective if he could stand still, but we have time, so it's not a problem. Keeping my dots active. Fading for good measure. It's never a bad idea to fade if you have it. There's no global cooldown. It's really a great spell. And here we have boss coming up. For bigwigs, I've pretty much turned off all of the notices except for the flame wave. And I think the charge. So it's just things pertaining to things I need to avoid. I try and turn off everything else. So I am ramping here for my opener with atonements and dots. And this is a double cooldown window with Ruby. So Shadow Fiend Schism, Boon, Blast, Nova Nova Blast. Dodging all of these mechanics, trying to land as many hits as possible. Retreat. Paints up. So coming out of Boon is always a really nice time to Paints up, because atonements are going to be dropping, dots are going to be dropping. It's more vulnerable, so Paints up is a really nice 8-second window to reset. And with this boss, you just have to kind of switch targets based upon who's wearing the shield. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know. I just use my nameplates, KUI nameplates, to monitor where the shield is. It grows from left to right. It's blue on the red. I think you can see it. So here's Lust. I don't have any cooldowns personally, but I PI'd the lock. Really good timing. And in a case like this, I prioritized dodging those volcanoes, because that would be a surefire way to die from those waves, pun intended. So I have Boon again. I'm kind of like sneaking up, ramping with dots. Schism, Boon, Blast, Nova Nova Blast. Trying to land as many hits as I can. And retreat. So I do have a weak guard there to track that dot that goes on your ally. Even on Tyrannical, I don't think it's super necessary to dispel. But it's nice to see it, and you can dispel it if you want to. But usually any cooldown window will more than cover it. It's pretty weak. But I think right there our Paladin got rid of it anyway. I think I went to dispel, but he beat me. So the way this goes is when one boss is down, you chain in trash. One of the hard parts about this dungeon, or the hardest part about this dungeon, is the timer. So here's a defensive rapture just as an opener, using grid 2 to farm my absorb values. Keeping dots refreshed. And it looks like I have all cooldowns coming available. Let's see what I do, I forget. I do watch these ahead of time if anyone's wondering, but I forget. I mean, and I played it too, obviously. So. But I am getting low mana, so I reach for a mana pot. And this is going to be a double cooldown window, just trying to pump DPS with our Ruby. I atone the tank, Shadow Fiend, Schism, Boom. We have traps on the ground, spikes on the ground, we have cleaves, and we have frontals. So those are all things I want to track with bigwigs. Pretty much take everything else off, unless it has to do with dodging. Grip the Warlock to safety, I'm pretty sure. And I definitely feel like my PI has been a little wonky this dungeon. I I would have to watch it over again, but I think it kind of fell off after the very first pull. I just fell off sync. Yeah, it's been weird. But here's a PI on our survival. Paints up just to get my dots out. I had 2 mechanics on me, so my file auto-triggered. However, I walled also. Schism Seer. Thankfully the Paladin had a really nice heal there. I kept getting double mechanics, which is like the odds of that are just really low. So we had 2 frontal hits land there. And this guy is almost dead. Saved the Warlock again from that frontal. Definitely as a priest, party nameplates, I mean, you'll never hear me talk about that too much, but if you want to get good grips, pro grips, you have to be able to see where your party is in the field, and I just think party nameplates are the best way to do that. Ramping with dots, stabilizing health with natural healing, Schism Boon, Blast, Nova Blast, trying to land as many hits here as possible, trying not to break from Boon. Very aggressive, had no atonements out, but we were fine. So I almost dodged that. It's nice just to be moving as the stampede goes out, or the rampage, whatever it's called, because if you're moving, you won't get hit. So I think it's just a good practice as that charge is happening, just to be moving already, and it'll miss you. Okay, so here's a pretty fat PI on our survival hunter. I'm opening with dots and Fiend, Atonements, a delayed Schism, and single target because he was kind of separated out. Generally I would Mind Seer, but he was too isolated right there, so single target. And Boon wouldn't have been the best play. It only came up midway through the pull, I believe. Thankfully we had that heal come in. I was getting targeted with a lot of mechanics, so a lot of self-love there, or whatever. I like to just soothe everything. I just like to soothe everything. So I knew we were going to pull this, but I don't know, I just like pressing buttons, so I soothed him anyway. So for this group, we also want to roll Boon, making sure I'm targeting my spectrometer. And since boss is next with a small pack, we really have to prioritize all CDR. So very last thing before Boon, I toned the tank. Blast, Nova Blast for a full 10 seconds. And it's extra pro here. Didn't catch any on camera, but the is called Throw Gate Crusher. There is a target mechanic, so you can see who it's being thrown at and grip them out of the way pretty like right after it casts. Didn't get any in this key, but that's how you do it. And this, We were all in Discord together, and if you heard my input, I was saying let's just play it regularly. Everyone tries to like cheese this boss, but I just don't think there's any need to really. And like objectively, someone can count the timer if they want to, but we've been standing here for 45 seconds. So yeah, I think we should have just literally ran straight in without a second delay and just played it. But I guess you can come out here if you have a Warlock, and it avoids the gate mechanics. So if Blizzard's watching this, I did not vote for this. I was actually opposed to it. Don't ban me. So there is our PI on the Warlock. And to maximize on our Ruby, this is double cooldowns. Shadow Fiend Schism Boon. Blast Nova Nova Blast for 10 seconds. And that was an uninterrupted boon. And as far as Bigwigs goes, I pretty much only track the Primal Assault on my timers. So like this attack, the time to feed, I have it built into my UI to see it. I don't really need it as a timer. Oh, I guess I do have it as a timer too. Never mind. But the Primal Assault, you need to turn everything else off except like the Primal Assault basically. Again, that's the one item that you have to dodge. So everything else I think is a natural kind of cadence. And yeah, you can see the time to feed on the bars. Have a little weak aura to give a red, like dotted line. And he feigned death it off, or something happened. Primal Assault, frontal, get out of the way. And coming up is one of the only times I'll be able to highlight this strategy, and the only time you'll ever want to fish for a penance proc is leading into a schism. So schism was coming available, I fished, I got a proc, and then in your schism window you just want to DPS for 9 seconds, getting full value. And right here, keep an eye on the Warlock's party nameplate. He's targeted with the frontal. And right there, it deserves a replay if anyone's watching this. That was just like the pro life grip of the century. The Warlock was targeted with the frontal and was hit by a volcano, so he was not going to be able to get out of the way. And I snatched him in midair. So for that, our Warlock was targeted again. He had a sacrifice, and I had boon, so he was totally covered. I made a second round of PI there too, went to the Warlock. I think it overlapped with the time to feed. And then here's the main problem I have with these like hacks. First of all, I don't think everything in life needs a hack. And then here we are. We cheesed one of the mechanics out of our gameplay, but we've wasted, at this point, 1.5 minutes of twiddling our thumbs, because now we can't get in the gate. I have forgotten the name of the toy. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? No one in our group did, but yeah, there's a toy. I didn't have it on my bars. We try a new gate. Okay, so now we're at 2 minutes wasted because we've stood around. So is a cheese strat better? I don't know. So I thought I'm like getting really frustrated at this point because I didn't want to cheese it anyway. But then I think the rogue is like, oh, guys, you can just walk in. Yeah, he's just running. Oh, now I got it. Okay, so if anyone wants to count that up for me, I'd like it as an argument as I submit my dissertation to our tank for why not to cheese this boss. But leading into the boss and after the boss, that was at least 2 minutes lost. And not to spoil the spill the beans here, but we only timed this key by 18 seconds to spare. So you do the math. Okay, last boss. Really not too much here. The cannon, you don't want to be in It's LOS because it can spread the damage. I think I learned that the hard way here. No death, but it can hit more than one person. We're going for the adds first, so I'm getting all my dots out. We have a PI on the Warlock, and here's our first boon: Schism Blast, Nova Blast, Radiance Blast. So it's a back and forth rotation, boon weaving, if you will, trademark. And coming up for the Grand Smash, I could have done better about having everyone topped. Yeah, so you need to have everyone topped before the smash, especially that first round with the adds. It can get a little bit tricky. At the very least, have everyone atoned, because it reduces damage. Having everyone topped and or shielded is a better option. Okay, so here we have Shadow Fiend. Getting some atonements out. Trail in a Schism a little bit late on the Shadow Fiend, which is fine. And I was targeted with this again, so reach for Pain Sup. And yeah, for Bigwigs, I only have the smash timed. It's really the only cadence I need to be shown. But leading into this smash, I had the cannon mechanic 3 times in a row. So I reached for a defensive rapture, but went ahead and raptured the whole group to protect the from the smash. And this was a learning lesson. I was bopped, which negated that knockback mechanic. And even though I attacked the boss trying to end the RP, it was still a death, so no bop. And here we have 2 target cleave, refreshing some atonements, Schism Boon, Blast, Nova Blast. Here's our second PI on the Warlock. And the smash is 10 seconds away. There's no reason to hold barrier, so I think that's what I reached for here. Yeah, I pre-cast barrier. And for a case like that, and there's a lot of cases like that, you can cast the barrier 3 to 4 seconds early, pre the attack, because that just gives your party 3 to 4 seconds to get in it. So you don't want to lay it necessarily too late, because they won't have a time to use it. And this is, yeah, we're just pumping as much natural DPS as possible, keeping Schism rolling. But the whole group is a little bit dry at this moment, so it's kind of just a feel bad phase. Here's another round of Schism. No reason not to use it with a knockback coming. And before the knockback, it's always nice to keep a fresh dot. So that was the very last thing I cast there. Yeah, it just helps you helps your damage from fading entirely. And this run back takes like 20 seconds anyway, so a fresh dot, just the way to do it. And this is a moment I strategically opt to hold my spells. We notice we have less than a minute on our timer. I have Ruby, Boon, and Shadow Fiend just came available. So refresh my atonement on the tank. Shadow Fiend, Ruby, Schism, Boon. Blast, Nova Blast. And I work in a Blast, Death Blast, since we were in execute range with Schism. And when it comes to your cooldown windows, if you can double up with your trinket window, it's just slightly more min-maxing. And yep, there it was. That was really close. The boss almost did one last smash, which could have broke the key. Hard to say with our dots rolling, but I did gain 5 points of IO there, so that's really sweet. But I would say the overall hardest part of this dungeon is its timer. You pretty much need a hunter so that they can pull the gauntlet. But other than that, I don't really vote for that lock mechanic. You can clearly see we lost more time there than anything. And yeah, I didn't really think I would make 2 videos this week, but I kind of just sat down and it happened. So here's an Iron Dox. This is a new one for my channel. I think the biggest thing to your advantage in this key is knowing where your frontals are, knowing where your dispels are, and knowing when you have to cast defensive. So I do have that weak aura pack that can help you see those things, but I always recommend editing down your bigwigs to only show you the things that are most necessary. So if you have any questions, please ask. I do my best to answer all of them. And there is my character pane if you want to see it. But until next time, guys, Disc out.